The U.S. Navy wants you to believe that a 30-hour fire, one crippling a massive supercarrier in a war zone, was caused by laundry lint. But if you talk to the sailors who just survived a grueling 9-month extended deployment on the USS Gerald R. you hear a new story. Today we are tearing down the official narrative to reveal why the Navy is urgently pulling its brand new flagship out of the Middle East. They are replacing this highly advanced marvel of modern engineering with a 50-year-old Nimitz-class vessel to hold a collapsing front. On paper, the United States proudly boasts a massive global fleet consisting of 11 fully operational nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. In the harsh reality of modern global conflict, we are fighting a dangerous multi-front proxy war with only 2 active naval strike decks. The abrupt combat withdrawal of the USS Gerald R. is not just about a suspicious onboard fire or some failing experimental catapults. It is a massive red flag about a broken maintenance cycle, human exhaustion, and a naval strategy that is stretched to its absolute limit. Let us dive deep into this crisis and carefully decode exactly what the Pentagon is actively choosing not to tell you about the situation. Every major news headline repeats the exact same comforting narrative, claiming minor fire damage is the sole reason for this sudden shift. That is not what happened on that ship, since the official damage report actually proves the vessel was still considered mission capable. 5 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, 60 Iranian warships currently sit at the bottom of the unforgiving seafloor. Missile factories are reduced to rubble, and air defense networks costing billions are completely gone inside 3 days. And yet the flagship of that successful siege, the USS Gerald R. is currently docked far away in Split, Croatia. She is over 9 months into a stressful deployment originally designed to last only 6 short and manageable months. This is the absolute longest continuous and unbroken carrier deployment we have witnessed since the bloody Vietnam conflict. The Pentagon's desire for global force projection has finally collided with the harsh math of fleet rotational reality. We do not blindly celebrate expensive hardware here, but rather we examine what happens when hardware meets physical limits. To understand the unfolding crisis, you must look past the shiny advanced technology and focus entirely on cold naval logistics. The fundamental logic dictating our massive global naval operations is strictly governed by physics and not by human instinct. We are witnessing a dangerous illusion where ambitious strategic goals are forcefully prioritizing presence over sustainability. You have to understand what the USS Gerald R. was supposed to be holding before you can comprehend exactly why it finally broke. Let us take a hard look at the map to see exactly where the other 8 or 9 multi-billion-dollar carriers are resting today. If you visualize the global fleet right now, you will see a massive traffic jam of steel sitting quietly inside domestic dry docks. These massive floating cities are currently undergoing refitting procedures, prolonged system upgrades, and endless training cycles. The fundamental law of naval logistics dictates a strict rotational reality that requires 3 separate vessels to keep one deployed. One ship is actively holding the line in a combat zone, while the second one is heavily engaged in crucial maintenance and deep repairs. The third carrier is desperately trying to train up its fresh crew before inevitably cycling back into the active global combat rotation. The Pentagon designed a highly ambitious 3-carrier geometry without having the actual ready vessels to properly fill those positions. When Operation Epic Fury unexpectedly launched, the stark reality was a severe lack of operational decks to enforce the planned blockades. A staggering maintenance backlog has severely paralyzed our domestic shipyards and crippled our ability to project power across the globe. The uncomfortable truth is that our highly touted military dominance relies entirely on a delicate spreadsheet that is currently failing us. You simply cannot sustain a massive maritime siege when your vital replacement ships are permanently stuck waiting for necessary spare parts. The enemy economy and vital military lifelines depend entirely on 3 critical maritime choke points located across the region. The master plan required securing the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb, and the western approaches of the crucial Suez Canal. Naval commanders drafted a perfect geometry on the whiteboard, demanding 1 active carrier stationed securely at each vital door. The USS Abraham Lincoln bravely held down Hormuz from the east, while the USS George H.W. Bush was still resting back at Norfolk. The strategic coffin was confidently drawn with 3 solid walls, but in reality, it was always stretching just 2 active ships. The USS Gerald R. Ford was forced to do the exhausting work of 2 ships, sliding aggressively between the sea and the vital strait. This ambitious maritime geometry was meticulously designed to be unbreakable, but the tragic truth is that it was never completed. We will not waste precious time droning on about the tedious historical background of these highly contested and narrow waterways. The undeniable fact remains that the grand tactical equation required 3 vertices to effectively suffocate the hostile networks. Because the third defensive wall was completely absent, the carrier covering multiple positions broke before relief could arrive. The current op tempo is unsustainable for an 11-carrier fleet operating in a complex 2-front geopolitical landscape. In late October, the Pentagon suddenly redirected this tired vessel toward the Caribbean for a demanding counter-narcotics mission. Planners imposed a wildly different sortie pattern and a chaotic maintenance schedule that no modern supercarrier had ever survived. The impressive ship adapted remarkably well to the Caribbean theater right before Operation Epic Fury aggressively kicked off in February. Instead of finally returning home, the USS Gerald R. Ford was ruthlessly ordered eastward into the turbulent Red Sea to carry the fleet. This single vessel valiantly tackled 3 totally unique mission profiles across 3 diverse theaters without a single maintenance reset. Pushing this massive floating fortress far beyond the designated red line of operational tempo eventually broke the grand strategic illusion. Naval architects desperately warn that you simply cannot demand a solitary warship to permanently absorb the grueling workload of 3. While the aging George H.W. Bush was safely resting in Norfolk, this exhausted crew was actively stretching themselves across the entire map. The devastating breaking point for this incredibly complex vessel was never enemy fire, but rather a hopelessly fractured maritime schedule. The failure did not stem from a terrible technological design, but from forcing an unseasoned platform to skip its SRA window. The USS Gerald R. Ford was pushed dangerously far past its scheduled SRA, turning minor wear and tear into critical system failures. The Naval Administration forced this brand new warship to aggressively operate a full 3 months completely past its safe limit. The true story is strictly about pushing an untested $13 billion machine far beyond mechanical and human endurance. Every modern combat vessel relies on a predictable cycle of deployment and maintenance to prevent catastrophic internal breakdown. By deliberately canceling this crucial maintenance period, top commanders practically guaranteed a massive operational disaster. You simply cannot skip vital depot-level inspections on a completely new hull without paying a massive strategic price later on. The delayed selected restricted availability meant that thousands of small, interdependent mechanical issues were left unaddressed. The core marketing pitch for this massive vessel revolves around an incredibly high operational pace that completely dominates the battle sky. A surge, sortie generation rate of 270 a day is meaningless if the internal ecosystem of the ship completely collapses after month 6. The new electromagnetic technology replaces outdated steam systems to significantly reduce massive structural stress on delicate airframes. Every measurable metric indicates a generational leap forward, but this massive leap comes with a hidden cost invisible on the spec sheet. This incredible launch speed is effectively neutralized when the interconnected power distribution networks inevitably start failing together. Naval planners traded reliable mechanics for a highly complex digital system that completely failed under sustained combat operations. The impressive tactical capabilities on paper mean absolutely nothing when the vessel cannot maintain a steady pace during active conflict. The advanced technology aboard this massive vessel relies entirely on the physical endurance of 5,000 exhausted human beings. You cannot simply demand constant peak performance from a weary crew that is forced to operate without adequate rest or recovery time. The tragic failure was definitely not found within the complex nuclear reactor or the intricate electronic power distribution systems. The underlying problem was silently growing within the living organisms tasked with keeping the massive mechanical beast fully alive. Pushing this dedicated military personnel beyond their natural breaking point ultimately shattered the impressive defensive geometry. Habitability systems inevitably degrade when too many tired sailors are tightly packed inside a stressful steel box for many months. The harsh reality of combat logistics proves that human psychological fatigue is just as dangerous as a major structural hull breach. Naval commanders blatantly ignored the fragile human element while desperately trying to maintain an aggressive global combat posture, forcing these brave sailors to endlessly patrol dangerous waters without a single proper break created a highly volatile powder keg. The protective wall surrounding the Middle East was not forcefully knocked down by our enemies, but rather worn down from the inside. Under immense combat stress, routine maintenance inevitably gets gun-decked by exhausted sailors just trying to survive the next shift. The psychological toll of an unbroken deployment exceeding 280 days completely destroys regular operational protocols. Desperate sailors are quietly forced into falsifying vital maintenance logs simply because they lack the physical energy to do the work. Minor daily inspections are constantly skipped when sleep-deprived technicians are frantically scrambling to keep the main engines alive. Working endlessly without proper spare parts creates a dangerous environment where cutting corners becomes the only way to stay afloat. The official paperwork sent back to the Pentagon falsely claims absolute perfection while the actual ship slowly crumbles into disrepair. This catastrophic psychological breakdown across the entire crew directly guarantees that hidden mechanical issues will eventually explode. A tired mechanic holding a wrench cannot magically fabricate missing components while desperately fighting against severe sleep deprivation. The dangerous practice of fabricating reports is an unavoidable symptom of a broken logistical strategy, prioritizing presence over safety. Let us address the infamous laundry room fire with a strong dose of cynical military realism regarding daily naval operations. A tiny spark inside an aft compartment quickly becomes a massive disaster when exhausted sailors lack the energy to fight it. Minor mechanical failures inevitably cascade into catastrophic operational shutdowns when a tired crew is working without parts. The dense smoke rapidly displaced hundreds of critical personnel from their adjacent berthing areas during the dead of night. This contained emergency perfectly exposed the accumulated strain of operating across 3 incompatible mission profiles. The official damage assessment conveniently ignored the undeniable reality that this massive ship was fundamentally broken. Any older legacy carrier would have easily shrugged off this localized emergency without abandoning its vital combat post. The deployment truly ended the deployment long before the lingering smoke ever cleared from the dark lower deck corridors. You cannot separate the physical fire from the 9 grueling months of continuous neglect that severely weakened the vessel. An older mechanical steam catapult fails in predictable ways that a weary deckhand can quickly diagnose with a heavy wrench. Highly complex digital systems fail in completely unpredictable cascading ways that rapidly propagate through the entire ship. The crucial difference between a mechanical failure and a systemic collapse is the terrifying speed at which everything breaks. If a single physical gear shatters inside a traditional machine, you hear the loud noise and immediately repair the damage. Advanced digital systems completely depend on integrated software loops that silently drain power without offering any warning. We blindly assumed replacing mechanical simplicity with digital complexity would guarantee perfect reliability under heavy demand. A massive systemic failure occurs when thousands of interconnected digital subsystems simultaneously cross their operational limits. The ship ran for far too long without an essential maintenance reset to prevent these cascading software failures from compounding. This highly advanced marvel of engineering simply went completely dark because the operational battery was totally drained out. Our modernization thesis contained a dangerous operational assumption that was never properly stress-tested in a real combat scenario. The legacy vessel sailing across the ocean to quickly fill the massive strategic gap was designed to be the end of the line. This older ship was originally built to be phased out permanently as the shiny new experimental fleet took over the oceans. The fresh crew sailing on the USS George H.W. Bush has slept comfortably in their own racks for many long and restful months. Every single vertical launch cell is fully loaded with deadly precision weapons, and every massive steel magazine is full. This reliable carrier spent the last 2 years safely docked at Norfolk, completing necessary scheduled maintenance upgrades. A completely fresh and fully rested crew is not just a pleasant luxury, but rather a highly critical strategic naval asset. This older vessel had not sustained 3 exhausting mission profiles across 9 grueling months without a single break. Legacy platforms are supposedly meant to gracefully step aside, except legacy ships do not randomly break down at month 9. This mighty legacy carrier proudly brings a completely full fighter complement alongside 3 heavy destroyer escorts. While the highly advanced future of the naval fleet sits broken in a shipyard, the reliable past is sailing to hold the line. The central core theme we must completely understand today is that basic physical availability always beats advanced technical capability. This mighty older vessel is currently sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, not because she is better, but simply because she is available. Being physically present exactly when the complex defensive geometry desperately needs you is a powerful form of critical capability. The carefully designed mathematical geometry of naval warfare does not ask which specific carrier has the most advanced stealth systems. It strictly demands to know which heavy warship is immediately ready to securely lock down the maritime choke point against enemy fire. A completely available and reliable legacy platform consistently beats an optimal future platform when that optimal choice is broken down. The ship deliberately designed to make the Nimitz obsolete is quietly sitting inside a dry dock while the past aggressively holds the line. It clearly does not matter if you can efficiently launch aircraft with smooth digital precision if your entire carrier is stuck in port. The reliable steam catapults designed decades ago keep operating smoothly under exact conditions that totally crippled the modern fleet. This 50-year-old mechanical system faithfully produced absolutely 0 systemic failures across its entire storied operational history. When the mighty supercarrier abruptly withdrew from the vital strait, the hostile forces finally saw a clear opening to attack. A strong naval presence creates effective military deterrence, while sudden absence serves as an open invitation for total chaos. The aggressive Houthi militants immediately exploited this massive strategic silence by launching a barrage of dangerous drones. The inescapable strategic coffin we previously described to you was never actually completed by the struggling military planners. The aggressive ongoing naval siege currently operates as a leaky funnel because only 2 defensive walls were successfully built. While the legacy carrier securely holds the Mediterranean vertex, the crucial southern corridor remains completely unprotected today. A solitary active warship cannot possibly project meaningful military deterrence across 1,800 miles of empty open ocean. Enemy missile operators are eagerly testing this new terrifying silence, while the broken flagship remains stuck inside a shipyard. The devastating consequence of this glaring maritime absence is an emboldened adversary actively probing our weakened southern flank. This highly orchestrated grand strategy completely fell apart simply because the necessary defensive ships were entirely unavailable. $13 billion proudly bought the highest aircraft launch rate ever achieved in the entire history of naval warfare. The brutal maritime war being fought right now is aggressively testing a completely different question about sheer endurance. The ultimate question the next massive naval shipbuilding budget has to answer honestly revolves entirely around physical stamina. The powerful USS George H.W. Bush is bravely stepping up to successfully hold the critical maritime defensive line today. This legacy ship proves decades of refined engineering easily outworks untested innovation when extreme pressure is applied. This devastating situation begs a highly critical question concerning the future of the massive U.S. Navy moving forward. Should Congress halt the expensive production of new Ford-class carriers and return to building the battle-proven Nimitz fleet? Are these current growing pains simply the unavoidable high cost of necessary military modernization efforts across the globe? Please drop your detailed tactical assessment in the comments section below, and I will gladly pin the best strategic argument.